This module will be talking about universal design for learning. So you may be familiar with this model from special education courses, but this is also a really great model to use when integrating technology because it allows us to think about how technology is improving the learning of our students. How is it supporting their specific and individual needs? So why UDL? Why do we pick this one over others? It's primarily because it allows you to plan meaningful learning activities. The reality is that technology is new and constantly changing. The body of peer-reviewed, credible research remains small as education continues to grow. And so using UDL, which is a proven, very credible framework, we can make sure that the way we're integrating technology is actually meaningful and has some research basis. And it allows us to be really supportive of the diversity of our students and to keep their needs at the forefront of our planning. Another reason, Jesus is the ultimate teacher and he sought all people, not only the ones that are easy to love. And technology can help us with those students who are really struggling to be successful. We see in Matthew 19:14 that Jesus values the children. And in that time, children were kind of expected to be seen but not heard, or preferably not seen at all. And so Jesus invites them in and brings them into the teaching and takes the time to share his love with them as well. And we as educators should be doing that as well. And with these tools that we have now, with having these iPads and being able to integrate them, it's really, really helpful to use Jesus as an example. Another time we see Jesus seeking all people is when he stops the stoning of the adulterous woman in John 8. And so she had done wrong and she had made mistakes and things were hard. But as we are learning to work with our students, and our students will make mistakes, we need to be using this example from Jesus and meet them where they are. So UDL really allows us to put the students at the center of our learning, at the center of the environment, the center of the classroom. And it helps students, we can help them to form their opinions and to truly understand what's going on and how the content connects to not only themselves and their lives, but how it also connects to their faith. UDL also allows students to develop their specific gifts and talents, which is a really important piece of all academic learning and of faith. So in the book, Love the Lord Your God with All of Your Mind, Moreland and Willard really talk about how we as people need to develop our minds so that we can truly grow in our understanding of God and therefore of his calling in our lives. And so when we use UDL, we're making sure that every single student understands their gifts, understands their talents, understands their value, and then they are better able to connect to their specific calling. In Teaching Redemptively, Graham talks about how education is meant as a response to our calling in life. It's not the main part of our students' lives, even though it may feel that way in the moment because they spend so much time in school. They're going to spend a lot of their time outside of school. And so education is a response to the calling in our lives and then allows students to engage with what God made them to do. He didn't make them to be students forever. So how is what we're doing going to enable students to leave our classrooms and make positive change? And when we use UDL, it allows us to be sure that all students are ready to make that positive change. So, what is UDL specifically? You may be familiar with this already, but we are going to be doing a quick review. It has three main categories: multiple means of expression, multiple means of engagement, and multiple means of representation. So, multiple means of engagement. That means this category, this principle, focuses on getting students engaged with the learning and helping them to stay motivated. So how every student is different. What's going to interest them, what's going to make them excited is different. So when we say multiple means, it means we don't just rely on one way to hook students into our lesson. We use a variety of ways of doing that. So we do this Think of different ways to get interest. Think of your students. What interests them? Will having a slide deck with a Minecraft theme get their attention and their interest? Or will getting to use the technology to be independent learners going to make them more interested? It's up to you and your students. We can also achieve this by making sure we use lots of different ways of encouraging perseverance. So whether we do that through badges or dojo points or our classroom management system, make sure that we are building a system where students can become more self-regulated, and how we can, maybe you use checklists so that they can see that they are making progress. Maybe you can do having a peer reflection where they share one awesome thing that they were able to finish in that day, but just making sure you're doing this in a variety of different ways. It's not all online, it's not all individual, it's not all one thing, the same thing every time. Multiple means, doing this in a variety of ways so all your students have a chance to be engaged. Multiple means of representation is focusing on the learning materials themselves and making sure that the information shared is in the best way for students to understand. So really quickly, just a reminder, our students are not visual, auditory, or kinesthetic learners. All students learn in a variety of different ways. So this does not mean by any stretch of the imagination that you are helping your students figure out what learning style they have. Absolutely not. What it means is that we're presenting the information in a variety of ways so that students have multiple points to understand. And depending on what the topic is, a video may help in science, but a demonstration and manipulatives may work better in math. It's not always going to be the same. And so we can achieve this multiple means of representation by having materials that can be understood with more than one sense. So this is where physical manipulatives are really helpful, or having the information presented in video and in writing, maybe having subtitles to support students in different languages, making sure that we are building and activating background knowledge. So having built into our Google Slides, having comments or extra links where students can go and learn more about a topic if they need that. And then we have multiple means of action and expression. This is just having lots of opportunities in different ways where students can share what they've learned. So provide them with multiple options of apps to work with, or having different platforms and modes of sharing their learning. Giving them choice boards so that they can choose what's going to work best for them. So, how are we going to do that? We have accessibility tools. These are really, really important, and this helps with representation and expression. So, we need to be openly exploring how technology can better support students. I know sometimes technology can feel inconvenient. We never know what's going to happen with the Wi-Fi. We never know if the device is going to be charged. There can be a lot of issues. But these accessibility tools really allow many of our learners with disabilities, or our ELL students, or even just our day-to-day regular students to have slight adjustments that make the learning more meaningful. And so they can be supported through things such as screen readers, where the text on the screen is read aloud to them so they now can see it and hear it. Speech to text software, so instead of having to type out, or if they're struggling with some spelling or with sounds, being able to speak the words and have it show up as text is really, really helpful. There's also motion adaptation. So students with some of their fine motor skill development problems, there are accessibility features built into the iPads that help support these students so that they can be independent and successful. We can also be creating choice, and so this supports multiple means of expression and multiple means of engagement. So we can do that with self-paced learning. So we have things like gamification, where you go through and you create levels, and students get points for completing activities, and they get to fill up the leaderboard and get badges. This really motivates a number of students and gets them more engaged. You can use choice boards. So instead of creating the levels, you just give them choices. Do you want to make a video or do you want to write an essay? Do you want to make a virtual reality or do you want to draw a picture? Just giving them these options where they can do what they feel they are best at. Allow students to design their own projects. Ask them what they want to do. Instead of giving them choices, ask them, how do you want to represent your learning? Use open-ended rubrics. And what I mean by that is use rubrics that assess the skill, but it's not dependent on what piece of technology you're using as you do it. So it would be things like students clearly define what each simple machine is. You can do that in a PowerPoint, you can do it in a video, you can do it in augmented reality, and you can use the same rubric to assess student work. And so when students have this opportunity to explore technology, and even educators have this opportunity, you're creating these 21st century habits and you're giving them strategies to be independent, successful learners. And that's one of my favorite parts of integrating technology, especially when using UDL, is we're helping students discover what will make them successful so that they can use those tools later in life. We also want to be thinking about technology-based assessment. So this helps us with expression and engagement. So again, using technology to support assessment allows it to be self-paced, and it also allows for immediate feedback. And it allows for quicker results on formative assessments. So as we are using this technology to give assessments, we're giving our students information and feedback more quickly. And that's really helpful because they can immediately apply it. When we have this gap between the assessment and the student getting the feedback that the assessment's supposed to supply, it's less likely that they'll be able to apply it to their learning process. But if they can immediately see, oh, I'm not dividing correctly, they can already be correcting themselves before they build any more bad habits. We also want to be using new technology on our assessments, but when we do that, we want to do it in small ways, building up to bigger impacts. And so this allows for more student creativity, but allows students to be supported in the process. So if you want your assessment to be a video, make sure that you have made smaller videos before the summative assessment. Make sure that you have taught students maybe about script writing or storyboarding so that they can be supported in this process. We love seeing technology in our assessments. We want that. It really, 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 really helps support students. But remember that this should be taken in steps and not just thrown into the deep end. So if you want to read more, here are some great places to read more. We've got some really great, the CAST website, which talks all about universal design for learning and gives you guidelines and steps and great specifics. Some other really great articles talking about creating inclusive spaces and how technology can support you in that process.